At some point, every leader faces a moment of truth, a decision so complex and with such high stakes that it defines their legacy. In these moments, the difference between success and failure isn't just strategy, it's character. But how do great leaders stay decisive under pressure? Let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk because the key is knowing what separates those who rise from those who falter. And we're about to uncover the secrets behind decision making that shapes businesses, governments, and lives.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jolles.
Today's guest, Robert L. Dillenschneider, founder and CEO of the Dillenschneider Group, is one of the world's foremost communication experts and leadership coaches. Dillenschneider is widely published, having authored 18 inspiring business and career development books. He's counseled major corporations and professional groups around the globe. The media frequently call upon him to provide commentary and strategic public relations insights on significant news stories. Character is his latest book, and he's here to talk to us about it. Happy to have you with us, and welcome to the show, Bob.
Rob, it is always great to listen to your show, to watch your show, and to be on your show. So thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that, and I truly do. Funny thing, there's a few podcasts out there, so we podcasters, we work as hard as we can, and it really is a pleasure to get you in here because I've never seen a title of a book so simple, and yet it caught my eye the moment I saw it. And you know what? Maybe let's start there. When I teach sales, and everybody pretty much wants me to define what selling is because people have different definitions of it. I'd be interested in your definition of how you define character.
It really gets to why and how I wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that question. I wanted to deliver messages to readers that here's how prominent men and women handle themselves, involved others in the equation, and everybody rose to a higher level. May I give you an example?
Sure.
Dwight David Eisenhower, and I never met Eisenhower. I know his granddaughter and others. Eisenhower, on June 5th, 1944, must have known when our boys hit those beaches that a lot of them were not coming back. His ability to deal with that in a constructive way and in the guts it took to say to himself, I'm going to do this, and it's going to be a legacy for the remainder of my life, which it was huge. I know we've all seen movies and heard radio tapes when he was president and before that when he was general. And he never hesitated to deal with the issue of how he felt on D-Day. And how he felt, at least he told us this, was he realized that there were a huge number of American boys who were going to hit the beach and not come back. And he dealt with that pretty tough.
Yeah, really tough. And my dad was one of those who hit that beach. He hit at Omaha, and he was a corpsman.
That's a tough place.
It was a tough place, and quite frankly, there was no way he was going to survive that if his boat hadn't been hit by a mine coming in, and half the men were lost. And by the time he came in on the third wave, which was still a very difficult mission. I don't know and we won't spend too much time here, but you got me going, so I got to keep going on this for a second. Have you ever heard of the term? He told me that he was referred to later as a mule corpsman.
Oh yeah, I have heard that phrase, and that's somebody really kind of reaching down, sucking it up, and saying, "I'm going to do this," and
Right.
pushing forward and getting it done.
Right.
We don't use that phrase today.
No,
It's a very useful phrase.
Right. And they brought those corpsmen in waves as well. Taggers, people that would, perform very quick medical emergency type maneuvers. And then the next wave would kind of complete. So they were doing a lot of writing so they could tip off the next corpsman as to what medications had been applied and things like that. But boy, there's that for me, that was the greatest generation.
I remember speaking several years ago to
Hmm.
Steven Spielberg, who was the producer of the film. And I said, Spiel, why did you not spend more time on the individuals who hit the beach and some who died? And he said there were too many. He said I couldn't make the adjustment. He said I had to figure a way to go forward, which he did.
Yeah,
But you saw people, your dad probably included, that suffered at that time, big time.
right. Yeah, the thing that Spielberg did do very effectively was he was the first one to ever really show us what it looked like.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
for years, my dad and I would sit down and watch the John Wayne movies, and
right.
you know, and he actually liked watching them because they would splice in some real footage, so he was always looking, looking, looking. But I remember when Saving Private Ryan came out, calling down into Florida and asking him, had he seen it? Yes. Was that it? Yes.
Right.
So Spielberg really did, as difficult as that was to for viewers, that was we needed to see that. That's what it looked like.
Pretty tough for your dad to see it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was. All right, let's get back into your book.
Sure.
Okay, but thanks for letting me kind of wander down that a little bit. It reminds me of my dad and one of my heroes. Okay, lot of key qualities of effective leaders. And let's go back to leaders. But of all the qualities, you've sort of put a pin in character as one of the defining qualities of
Right.
effective leadership. There are others. I mean, I could go to a board and say, well, honesty and integrity, and why character? Why that one?
I use character. I looked at a lot of different phrases
Uh-huh.
or words, and I picked character because it seemed to me individuals out there who were willing to read parts of the book
Hmm.
had an opportunity to develop their character based on what they read in the book. For example, Lou Gehrig is in the book. Lou Gehrig was a great ball player.
Right.
He was playing at the time Babe Ruth was playing. The Babe, I mean, I wasn't around then, but the Babe got a lot more attention than Lou. But Lou Gehrig just steady every day, hit the ball, hit it out of the park, and put the Yankees in the pennant. So, I mean, and there's a very famous film at the end where Lou Gehrig says that this is the most important day of his life. That's where everybody celebrates Gehrig. And that was really all about character. That's what he stood for. And what a quiet guy, but quite a guy. There are a lot of people in the book like that. So that's why I use the word character.
Well, that's interesting. So in the book, you grabbed different characters. Let me not use that word. You've
Right.
different individuals in history and sort of so okay, we've got give me another one. Because I'm certainly familiar with Lou Gehrig and that famous speech and the classic movie that was done but maybe somebody that we don't know so well.
Well, there's a man who developed insulin, and very, very famous guy, and he never sought any attention. It's kind of people laugh about it. It's not actually funny, but people smile and laugh, and they say this guy developed insulin and didn't try to get any credit for it. It wasn't important for him to get credit. It was important for him to get insulin to people who needed it, and he did it. And even to this day, if you put his name in the internet, you don't get much back on him. So I decided to put him in the book, and he's in the book, and it talks about his unselfish attitude toward what he was doing. So people like that are in the book. There are some remarkable people that stood for things. Giscard d'Estaing, who led the French for several years. I remember being on the Riviera in the south of France one time, and I came down for breakfast from a little pension I'd been at. And I said to the owner, what happened in the election? Because the French election had been the day before. And this guy said, Giscard won, Giscard won. And I said, well, how much is the bill? And he said, there's no bill. He said, Giscard won, and he's going to put France on the map. Well, going up later in the year, I met Giscard d'Estaing. And if you haven't been in the Élysée Palace in Paris, try to find a way to do it because it's really an incredible place. I don't think there's anything like it in the United States or even anywhere really in the world. Anyhow, Giscard d'Estaing was humble. You could never convince him that he was the head of France. You could never convince him that he was motivating people, but he sure was, and he did it. And he did it by action and by example and by, frankly, character. That's what he did. It was fantastic. I look at French leaders of late; they didn't have the same scope as Giscard. If people like Giscard came along, and I look at guys like Donald Trump and Joe Biden and people before that, the only one who is really close to those guys in the United States now, from my point of view, was Bill Clinton. Clinton had a way of lifting all boats, and it worked out pretty well. Did I like the fact that he had the affair with Monica Lewinsky? No, I didn't like that. In fact, it really ruined Lewinsky's life. I sit on the board of a club in New York, and she applied for the club membership, and I took her forward, and the club members didn't want her, and that must have been devastating to her. But Clinton, by the way, had totally separated from her at that time. But Clinton did a lot of good things, and he always gave you the impression you were the only guy in the room.
Right.
And it wasn't that he was with you for 3 or 4 minutes. It might be 3 or 4 seconds that it was with you. You felt like $1 million.
Right. Well, and I think we should tell folks that before we recorded this podcast, Bob and I were talking, and I mentioned that I met with Bill Clinton one time for a very short period of time. And the first thing I told Bob was, the picture's embarrassing because it was only about 3 seconds, but I am in such awe because I felt I was the only one in the room. And I can assure you, there were a lot of people in that room, and it was a quick handshake. But he did. He would linger just a quarter second longer. He'd hold that grip just a little longer. He'd make eye contact just a little bit longer. And he'd smile, a very sincere and authentic smile. And then he was go off to the next hand. But it took me 5 minutes to come down from that handshake. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Donald Trump, with all respect to your listeners, viewers, Donald Trump does not create that kind of relationship. Donald Trump is a guy that imperious is the word that I use to define Trump. Is he doing the right thing? Well, a lot of people in the market today don't think so because they're losing a lot of money. But Trump claims we're going to come back. I certainly hope so. I was talking with my wife today about our little money we've got for the rest of our lives, and he's got to come back. He's got to do something.
Yeah. Well, I've got a 401k. I'm watching myself, but I'll try and stay out of the politics side. But let me throw one more name, a politician that isn't quite as polarizing, and that would be the name Ronald Reagan, because I think Ronald Reagan was, if I remember, and was given the tag, and I'm not going to get it right, but basically he could sit with kings and walk with paupers. You know, he could sort of take what you were describing with Bill Clinton. Do you think that Reagan kind of holds that side up for the red side of this conversation?
Reagan was an incredible person, and maybe better than Bill Clinton, but he made you feel like you were the only one in the room.
Right.
Now, to be fair, Reagan had a number of really good advisors. One of them was a man named Mike Deaver, who was at that time a significant person in government. Mike Deaver frequently advised Ronald Reagan on what to say and how to do it. I remember one time we were in an apartment in New York City, and Nancy Reagan was there. And Deaver said to me, "You got to meet Nancy." And I said, "Oh, that's all right." And he said, "No, you got to meet Nancy Reagan." So I did go over. I met Nancy Reagan. It was very pleasant. About 7 or 8 minutes later, I met the president, and Reagan said, "You're with my wife. What did you talk about?" So he was a man of the street, really a good guy.
Right. Right. And that's a person I never got an opportunity to meet or shake his hand, but you always had that feeling that no matter who he was talking to, he could connect at that level.
He
As
did.
a guy who works with salespeople and sales and writes about sales, that's quite a quality. I'm guessing that many leaders have that quality. But then let me throw a name at you that probably didn't make your book. What about a guy like Steve Jobs, who was, from what I'm hearing, much more of an introvert, and I'm not so sure of a leader of people, and yet he did lead that organization from back from the brink.
Jobs was and is brilliant. I
Hmm.
mean, it's that simple. Uh, it just rolls off of him every time you meet him. I've only met him once, but when I did meet him, it was so impressive because he was Steve Jobs and he was talking to me about stuff that was so far beyond me, I could not even realize it. He recognized that he was beyond me. He understood that he was developing and laying stuff on me that I didn't understand. So he took a deep breath, step back, and then brought it down to, frankly, a pedestrian level or my level, where I started to understand things. I remember when Jobs left. I didn't know him well, but I did have the chance to talk to him. Uh, I said, "What are you going to do when you resign?" He said, "Well, you're going to resign for a while. I'm going to think about it, and then I'm going to come back," which is what he did.
Yeah,
And I really admire people like that.
yeah,
I think, terrific person.
yeah. I'll give you a quick Jobs story, and then we're going to talk about some modern leaders. But behind me right now is the first Mac computer that I ever got, and it's one of the old, big, heavy steel ones that's got a light up Apple on there. But I remember the story. I mean, you talk about Jobs sort of looking for the smallest little kind of 1% moves,
That was him.
and a classic example, and I was looking at it today because the computer was on but closed, is that when we close a computer, frequently and it's on, there'll be a light on. And sometimes that light will blink. But on this particular computer, not the new ones, but on this one, Steve Jobs wanted that to blink like somebody was taking a breath of air. So it comes in, expands, and goes out. And
Right.
that's the way, as if the machine is breathing. And you think to yourself, well, it isn't. And do we really need to do that? But to me, that was part of the genius of Steve Jobs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jobs, by the way, made a lot of money.
Oh, I'm sure he did. Yeah.
He never told you he made a lot of money, never lorded it over you,
Yeah.
never invited you to his estate. There's a guy named Larry Ellison who I think is the second or third wealthiest person in the country. Jobs is better than Ellison. Ellison just makes the rest of us know who Larry Ellison is.
Right. Well, a lot of our billionaires seem to have that issue. But let's talk about some modern leaders and some of the challenges that they're facing. Uh, you can cherry pick one, but they're facing problems with integrity. They're facing challenges. Well, let's just start there. With me, in sales and business, once trust is broken, it is really hard to get back.
Almost impossible.
I would think that would be the same with integrity.
Yeah,
Once you show me a lack of integrity, I'm not sure you can promise me it won't happen again.
that's it. You look at the person who has slipped on a banana peel, however they did it, and you say to yourself, is this going to happen again? Will it happen to me? And that gets a lot of people backing away from serious people who are out there trying to command their interest. Integrity is a major, major factor.
Yeah, it's funny. I wish people would pay more attention to that. It's almost. Have you ever heard of the term "jump the shark"? I
Oh,
bet you
sure.
haven't. Oh, you have. Look at you,
Right.
Bob. Look at you. For those who don't know what Bob and Rob are talking about today on the Bob and Rob show, it's from Happy Days, but it actually identified a point when something had sort of reached its peak and began to fall off a little bit.
Right.
Uh, I sometimes think that integrity has almost, I don't want to say jumped the shark, but to me that was the end. There was no kinder word, character, maybe in the A and B of this that you could say to somebody. But I wonder if that's true today.
Well, Florida, the basketball team is
Hmm.
now number one in the country. I think the Florida players and the coach have the opportunity right now to step out there and, through integrity, make major statements to young people all over the country. Houston has the same possibility, but Florida won the game, so that's it. I remember going to Notre Dame, which I went to school there, and integrity was the game. There was a quarterback, I won't use his name, but he was one of the star players. And at Notre Dame, when I was there, you had to go to church services every day, not once a week, every day. And you had to sign in. So I did. And this great quarterback, who was really a person of caliber, said to me, I'm not going to go to the services. Would you sign in for me? I said, I can't do that. And he said, oh, why not? I said, I just can't do it. And it's wrong. I said, you go to church and, you sign in. He said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not. Well, he got booted out of the school. So he never really realized his potential because he went the wrong way.
Right. He almost got you booted out there with him. Good, smart decision by a young Bob. Sometimes that's an easy decision today. Right. That took some guts back then, particularly the quarterback of the team. I mean, that's a tough one.
Right.
What about, do you remember, and I don't have the quote exactly, but you remember when Charles Barkley was a player and said, in a sense, maybe you can help me with this, but delivered the speech that I'm not your kid's hero. I don't, that's not my role. What do you think about that?
I think, one of my heroes is Charles Barkley.
Uh-huh.
He was a tough forward. He never really looked for the recognition that Derek Jeter got, or not Derek Jeter, but
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan never looked for it, but he was tough. And I did play basketball, but not anywhere near that level. But thinking of being next to Barkley when you're going up for the ball, you're going to go into the stands. Barkley was that strong. He stood for a lot of things. He really motivated the team, and the Knicks were pretty good in those days. And they're not bad now, but they were really good in those days.
Yeah. And just staying on Barkley for a second, I'll tell you that I remember when I first heard it, I was disappointed. And as I've gotten to know him through the years, I admire him because what he was really saying was, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to give you an honest answer.
Definitely.
You have to parent your children. I'm not your child's parent. And so don't have them look to me. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going, don't have them look to me. I'm nobody's hero. I'm just a basketball player. That was almost an outrageous statement then. I'm guessing 20, 30 years ago. Not so outrageous now when you really think about it.
I know Bill Bradley very well.
Mm-hmm.
And Bradley was in college a great hero. And when he went to play for the Knicks, he was a great player as well. Bill Bradley never seeks the limelight. I've asked Bill Bradley to do things on occasion. He doesn't do them. And I mean, I've put money in front of him. He won't do it. And he'll do things that are eleemosynary, that really stand up for society. But he won't do things for money. And he just is that kind of guy. He and Barkley were great forwards. Great team.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's talk about self-doubt. We all experience it. And I think it takes courage to kind of work your way through it. Any tips for somebody who is, and it takes courage, by the way, just like you did that day when you told the quarterback at Notre Dame, I'm not going to do that move that we could probably get away with. Okay, that's a courageous move. How can somebody cultivate that courage now? What would you recommend?
First thing I'd recommend is make sure you want to do it. Very important. Make sure you can do it. Make sure you're prepared to deal with the downsides if it happens. Figure out the language you're going to use when you talk to people with perhaps problems like that quarterback. Those are very simple things, but they're all relevant. Look in the mirror and say to yourself, what do I stand for? It's time for me to stand up. I have to be counted. It doesn't make any difference if the people out there in the audience think I'm a terrific guy or they don't even notice me. Doesn't make any difference. I'm going to do the right thing. I think the right thing is exactly what to do.
Yeah. It's funny. I've always had my own definition for integrity or perhaps character, and that I don't know if I came up with it or I read it somewhere, but to me, it's doing the right thing even when nobody will ever know that you did the right thing.
Absolutely.
You know,
That's right.
If everybody's watching me where my golf ball, when watching me walk up to it, doesn't take a whole lot of character integrity not to move it 1 inch from that tree stump.
Right.
But if I know for a fact that no one's around, will I move that golf ball? And that to me is almost a metaphor for if somebody isn't around, do you still make that right decision?
I played golf with people who hit into the sand, and they're going down to get the ball out of the sand, and they'll toss a ball up, another ball onto the grass. And I wonder about those people. I don't call them on it, but I see it, and it helps them, helps their score, but it doesn't help them in terms of their integrity.
No, they got to live with that. I agree with you. All right. If somebody who's listening today was going to take one action, one thought from your book, okay, and apply it. And this is the trainer in me. I love entertaining and inspiring, motivating audiences, but the greatest thing somebody can say to me is, I saw you 3 months ago and here are the changes I made.
Right.
That's the one I want to hear. If somebody was going to take action from reading your book, and I know there's a lot of things they could do, pick one that they could start doing today.
Oh, it's a great question. And the answer is this. Pick a quality that you know is important, has real resonance, that you can actually deliver, and then step forward and do it. That's happening every day in American life, every day in life in places like Brazil, every day in life like in places like France. It's happening in those cities and those countries, and that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, I'm with you. And if I could add to it, don't be so obsessed and worried about failing. It's part of the process. I think that's what, I remember when my kids were littler, we had a fire in the house. No one was hurt, no one was harmed. But we were out for about a year. And I remember thinking quietly, it's one of the best things that ever happened to them, because in life, you get punched in the nose. And the first punch is somewhat dramatic. Second, but you realize I'm still standing. I'll wipe the blood from my nose, and I hope that doesn't happen again. And I'll learn a few things.
Right.
Next time somebody rears up to throw a punch at you, or life throws a punch at you, you're not quite as frightened by it because you know what that feels like. So I wish people would take your advice and realize, what's the worst that'll happen? It won't work. It'll fail. You'll be better off than sitting on the bench having never tried.
I always say to people, look at the most important thing that happened in your life 10 weeks ago, a year ago. They can't think of it. And when they can't think of it, you think about something negative that could happen. And frankly, the message to those people is, go ahead and deal with it, because it's going to be forgotten. I am sure that if we really took a test, that Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, all the rest of them had very bad things that happened in their tenure, but I'm sure it's all forgotten now. Historians may dredge it up, but people won't read that in books. Won't happen.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw George W. Bush into that little pile that you just threw out there, because he showed me some real integrity as well. And that's come from a Marylander. I'll just leave it at that. Any mentors, Bob, that you want to shout out and mention?
Well, my real mentor was a man named Richard W. Darrow. Richard W. Darrow was from Mechanicsburg, Ohio, and he died in early death. Died, I think he was 61 or maybe 62. But he taught me so much. He would come down. He was the head of a company. He would come down and sit in my office. I had a very tiny office at the time. He would sit in my office. He'd light a cigar, and he'd say, let's talk, let's do it this way. And in fact, I'll never forget one time, I wrote a piece. I was very proud of it. And I sent it to Darrow. And Darrow called me into his office. And he said, and I was expecting that I was going to get praise beyond belief. And he said, "You think this is pretty good, don't you?" And I said, "Well, Mr. Darrow," called him Mr. in those days. "Mr. Darrow, I hope you like it." And he said, "Well, it takes a lot of work to do something well here." We took 6 hours and went through the piece line by line, correcting mistakes, changing focus, one thing after another. Dick Darrow did that. And I remember one time being at a house party where it had a swimming pool in the back, and I arrived late for the party. And Darrow was there, and I said, "Dick, everybody has been in the pool. Nobody's going to go in the pool now that you're out and everybody else is out." And Darrow said, "Let's see." And he turned around and said to everybody, "Anybody for the pool?" Everybody jumped in. It was really something. Quite a guy. Quite a guy.
Well, I'm glad you brought his name up to the podcast. Listen, I want you to know something, Bob. When your publicist reached out, when I heard about you, I booked this podcast immediately. Because of who you are, and I've looked at your other books, and I can't think of a more important topic than character. I'm glad you put a pen to it. I want people to go look at that book on Amazon. I did. There aren't enough reviews on it. Now, it just came out March 25th, I believe. So we're going to, but let's get some, tell me who doesn't need this book. I'm just trying to think. So let's get some eyes on this book. Take a look at it, read this book, and most importantly, once you do, make sure you put a review up there. It matters to Amazon. It matters to authors. And this is just too important of a topic to not pay attention to. So really grateful you came on. How do people get a hold of you, Bob?
Well, we've got a website, Dillon Schneider Inc. That's one way to do it. They could look me up and easily get my phone number. You don't have to use the phone number if you get it. They could send me a letter to my home address, which is on Long Neck Point Road in Darien, Connecticut, 249 Long Neck Point Road. If people reach out to me, I will reach back to them, every single one of them. And so it's important that they count, and they need to know they count.
Good. And for those who aren't writing letters so much anymore, and you want to find them on the internet, don't worry, Bob, I got you covered. That's not the easiest name in the world, but believe it or not, it spells the way it reads. So you're looking for DILENSCHNEIDER. That's Dillon Schneider. That's all you need. Put that in. I don't think there's 400 of those. You're going to have to tunnel around. Okay. So you're looking for Robert, and we'll have it on the website as well. But thanks so much for coming in. Really, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you, Bob.
This is an important show. Thank you very much.
You bet. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.